The first half of the second season of Invincible has come to an end, and with the mid-season finale recently being released, it left the story on an emotional climax which felt like an appropriate place for the show to leave off for the time being. With there being another 4 episodes in the show that are created and are set to be on the way in the new year, I thought I'd take a look at all that was out there whilst also giving my theories and predictions on what I think could happen next. So let's get into it. Here is Invincible Season 2 Part 2, Everything We Know. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The release date. The main thing that I was thinking about at the end of episode 4 was how there's not going to be a new episode this time next week. Considering that we waited such a long time as well, 4 episodes isn't really that much to have to satisfy the itch that needed scratching with Invincible. However, the good news is it doesn't feel like it's going to be that long of a wait. The creator of the show, Robert Kirkman, did an interview where he mentioned that the mid-season finale was always something that he wanted to do with this season of the show. He mentioned how with episode 4 being such a large one where there was a lot to take away from it, and with the stakes being the highest that they've been all season, he wanted the mid-season finale to act as a bit of time to be able to digest it all. Plus, that paired with everything else that's going on at this time of year with the likes of Thanksgiving, Christmas and New Year, he didn't want it to get lost amongst the holiday season. So I suppose I can kind of see where he's coming from, and it does make sense. So with that in mind, there isn't actually a confirmed date for when the next part of the season is going to be returning. All we can take away from what Robert said was that it's going to be in the new year. With it being a mid-season finale and most of them tending to be around a month or a couple of months in between each part, I wouldn't actually be surprised if we saw it as early as January or February next year. That's not too long of a wait, and I think that's about the right amount of time to act as a break, and a moment for us to just catch our breath following what happened at the end of the most recent episode. So I'm going to predict the end of January or February next year. The story. Let's start by looking at Mark's story and where it could go. Following what happened in the mid-season finale, General Krieg said to Mark that he essentially had to take on the role that his father was supposed to do, and getting Earth on board as part of the Viltrum Empire. If Mark didn't do that, then when the Viltrumites checked up on him, they'd essentially slaughter millions of people. So it's left Mark in a pretty difficult predicament. First off, I think we're going to see Mark bringing his brother Oliver back to Earth. Within the comics, Mark offered to help Andrissa rebuild the city in Thraxa. However, due to the fact that the species' aging process is so much faster than what the human process is, with her being on the cusp of death, she asked Mark to take Oliver with him to Earth, so I think we'll see that happen quite early on. Plus, we had the hint of the baseball gloves in the mid-season finale, which looks like it could be for this here. Once on Earth, I think we're going to be seeing Mark quite literally fighting battles on all fronts. It's going to be an intense final 4 episodes. It felt like the first part of this season was about reuniting Mark with his father after showing us how much he resented him and didn't want to be like him, but also showing Mark and us that Nolan had changed. Whereas I think the next part of the season is going to be more focused on Angstom Levy and the plan that he has to destroy Mark, by finding out from other dimensions what his weaknesses are and how in those dimensions he got caught, captured and killed. So with the breadth of knowledge expanding from not only the 1000 Angstom Levys that got killed, but also the knowledge of multiple Marks, he'll most likely seek to get the revenge that he so desires. Within the comic, Angstom also opens up portals from dimensions and sends through some of the evil versions of Mark to take him on, so that could well be a possibility too. In the mid-season finale, we saw lots of emphasis being put on the fact that Mark didn't have it within him to kill the person in front of him, even if they were doing their very best to harm him to the point of death. This is something that I think he's going to need to overcome in order to be the strongest Viltrumite that there could be. This is where I think we could also see the black and blue suit being introduced to us. The title card has been cracking throughout 3 of the 4 episodes that we've been shown, and it very much seems like it's hinting towards the black and blue suit that Mark will most likely be going on to adopt. And this is where I also think we'll see Mark going the full distance and learning to kill those that are trying to kill him. I know he doesn't want to be like his father, but I think we'll see him realize that if he doesn't, then he'll just end up dead. With regards to Eve, out of the blue, her story's something that's actually piqued my interest massively. In the past 3 episodes, we've seen her battling not only with her internal thoughts, but also external thoughts from members of the public and her own family. So much so that she was no longer staying with her family and was on her own. With the events that occurred in episode 4, where her fighting kill cannon was a direct reason as to why 2 innocent bystanders were killed, I believe we're going to see her being more withdrawn in the next 4 episodes and struggling from a mental perspective on whether or not she wants to use her powers moving forward. Because the message that her father said to her about her powers not making her a hero but instead making her dangerous is something that I think will take over. But with it seeming like Mark is going to be in imminent danger, I feel she'll be drawn back to using them and helping him. With there being a small moment in episode 4 where we heard that Amber was kind of complaining that she hadn't seen Mark in a week, I think the breaking down of their relationship and even Mark getting closer could be something that we're going to be seeing getting developed too. With regards to Nolan, we were told by General Krieg that he was going to be taken back to Viltrum and killed as his punishment, but I don't think that's going to be the case at all. The last we saw of Nolan, he had a severe back injury that looked as though it could paralyze him. However, that most likely won't happen either, as there's so much more of the story that involves him that's left to tell. The next part of the story focusing on Omni Man is from the comics, so if you don't want to hear it, then skip ahead. Okay, so whilst I don't know whether or not this will be in this season of the show or in season 3 when that finally arrives, Nolan's escape is something which ties together Alan's story and the story of Mark, and the interest that Thaddeus has in him, something which could lead to the Viltrumite War. Whilst Nolan is healing from his injury, he ends up noticing Alan, and Alan essentially reveals to him everything that he knew of Thaddeus and the Coalition of Planets' interest in his son, something which leads both Alan and Nolan to break free from the prison and ultimately escape, so that's something that we've got to look forward to as well. So I'm guessing we'll also see how Alan managed to survive the Viltrumite attack, and also the turning off of the machine from Thaddeus. In terms of Debbie's story, we've seen her reach the final stage of grief, which is acceptance, and the last thing that we saw was that she left the house and was no longer letting what Nolan did define her as a person. When Mark eventually returns to Earth, we're going to be seeing Debbie needing to be accepting of Mark's brother, and due to the young nature of him, I imagine she'll look after him, which could give her the happiness and purpose which will fill the void that's inside of her. Those are just the main touch points that I think are going to be covered in the next season of the show, but I feel there are so many different directions that the next season of the show could go in. But considering that the mid-season finale was pretty epic and on a large scale, I think the finale in itself is going to be a big one for sure. Unfortunately for now, that's all that's known about the next part of Invincible. The show are keeping things really close to their chest, so I guess that just leaves a lot of theorizing. I'm sure more information will be released as we draw ever closer to that release date. So, there you have it. Invincible Season 2 Part 2 Everything We Know. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the card in the top corner. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. What do you think will happen next? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.